Are you looking for affordable office space in Marion? The Professional Building, located at 685 Delaware Avenue, is the place for you. For more information, call 740-383-6803. Office space is now available. Again, telephone number 740-383-6803. Hey, this is Scott Spears now. Welcome to the post-election edition. Very proud to be joined by the 40th Treasurer of the United States, Marion, Ohio's own Mary Ellen Withrow. And also, we're going to kick off the program by being joined by a man from New Jersey, the amazing Kreskin. Kreskin, how are you?
I am, Scott. I am together and in one piece, and glad that as of this morning I have electricity back, and I finally can hear, have telephones, have light, have heating, have food, and have stoves working. It was an interesting time, but listen, when you think of how some people have suffered, I'm good. I really am fine.
Well, Kreskin, I'm exhausted this week. My intro is weak because of it, but you are the guy who was on Jimmy Fallon last night. And what happened? Give the backstory to what you did. What happened? Amazing again.
Well, for me it was, and I can't even think of how many contacts have been made since last night from all over the country and Canada, because they're asking what went through my mind to achieve or result in what happened, and I can't quite explain it, except that 1 year, 4 months ago, and it was July 25th of 2011, when I was on the Fallon show, I sat down and wrote a note, which was carefully handled in such a way that no one saw what I wrote. In fact, for the entire 1 year and 4 months, not a single other person alive had any knowledge of it, and I would put an envelope, and we put it in the safe there at NBC. They couldn't even get to it if they wanted to, because I was the only one who knew the combination of that safe. But I decided, and it had to do with the election, of this past week. But I decided I wanted to protect the integrity of this, and also add a touch of a mystique. So I sent a sealed miniature strongbox to three other people. One was Robin Leach, who years ago had a series on TV called The Lifestyle of the Rich and Famous. I have not seen him much, but we made in contact, and he's now a columnist in Vegas, so I sent that to him. He had no idea how to open the package because he didn't know the combination. A third copy went to a couple here in New Jersey, Jesse Fries and Jill Briggs, who are there. They do a political talk show once a week at WMTR in New Jersey, and the mother, one is the mother, the other is the daughter. The mother went to the same high school I went to. I didn't know her then because she was ahead of me. But I thought I'd give them a little bit of a flavor of attention by them having this. And the fourth copy, everyone loves press, and that was sent to a place called Patsy's Restaurant, an Italian restaurant in New York, and made famous by Sinatra. And the miniature strongbox was placed, I think, in the most justifiably appropriate place for politicians. It was over the bar. And that's where the four pieces remain. Can you imagine, for 1 year, 4 months, and it was my attempt to predict the results of the election. So what happened was the two of the other packages that were not with Fallon were sent by courier, a messenger, from their sources to NBC over a week ago, and they were housed there. The fourth that Robin Leach had, I decided, leave it with him. A few days before the election, I called him, gave him the combination, so he could open it up and see what was stated in his message, and he gave me his word that he would keep it confidential from his column or anything else. But so it was an interesting control, and of course, I don't know if you saw last night, but
Yeah, I did catch it.
Pardon me?
I did see it last night.
Well, Chris, when they opened there were two parts to it. And I dedicated the whole thing, as I said, to not only Jimmy Fallon, but Johnny Carson, whom Fallon just revered. Carson did his show for half the time of this period on the air from the same studio, literally where we were standing. So from time to time, I've alluded to him. And he would have enjoyed the intrigue I placed in him, because I made it a situation where there was really a code factor involved, so that if anybody, a lot can happen. A lot can happen, Scott, in 1 year, 4 months. And God forbid anybody ever got to any of the packages and somehow bargained and thought, well, they're going to make hay with this. If they opened it, they would have no idea what the message was, because the message was in code, and it took actually the three of them to decode the message, which, of course, as it turns out, the first one was the prediction that the Democrats would win. The second was an interesting story because, as I explained, I failed with that. I failed in my prediction, and in explaining it, when I wrote that out, it was 1 year, 4 months ago, and there were more than 21 possible individuals running for the Republican candidacy, and the second prediction was who was going to run for the Republican candidacy. Romney was on the list that I showed, but as it turns out, it was really close to 30. I mean, you had two women, and you had a number of gentlemen. But for some reason, Romney did not stand out. I figured out before I made my decision. I spent close to 22 hours off and on for a number of days. My original decision, by the way, as the person who would run on the Republican ticket, was Mike Huckabee. For a number of reasons, this was a few months before, I pulled away and said, no, this is not the gentleman. It's not going to just happen. I know Mike Huckabee. I've appeared with him a number of times, and I think he's a very fine person, former minister, and then Chris became governor. And then I kept shopping, and the person I picked on was out of left field, and it was as it turns out, Romney. It was not Romney. It was Paul Ryan, and you can imagine when I made my prediction that within 1 month, it was a little over 1 month, that the Republican Party decided who was going to run in the Republican presidential ticket. When it was Romney, of course, I now saw that I had to live for almost over a year with the fact that I failed. It was really kind of and I couldn't say this to anybody because I had made a commitment that I would tell nobody. And then can you imagine, weeks later, after Romney was, announced to be the presidential candidate, that he goes and picks Ryan. It was an interesting scenario. And as I said, as we talked after the show, and there was mass excitement at NBC with the crew there and everything else, I said, I'm going to be asked this for a couple of years. What in the world made me pick him? And I'll tell you very honestly, Scott, I'm really not sure.
Well, tell me this, Kreskin, honestly. Now that you thought it was going to be Ryan, he ended up being the vice presidential nominee. What's going to happen in 4 years from now? Can you even predict it? Do you know?
I know. I don't know, and I've been it's by major newspapers that want to do special weekend stories. Could I predict what's going to happen 4 years ago? And I absolutely, positively refuse to. I will be very honest with you. I've had it with politics. And I think the American public has too. I've never seen such exhaustion in that. They say, if I hear anything more about this crap anymore, I just don't want to. The problem is, there's many problems. One is that we have 24-hour news right now. And with 24-hour news, we need to go back, we need to revert to what the British people and the Canadian people, because I predicted in 2006 the that amount of time. The United States, 6 years, and it's just nauseatingly, boringly tiring, because now we have network 24-hour news services, and you can only hear the people say the same thing over and over again, maybe 10 times, or it's 20, 30 times. No one is really hearing it anymore. The only reason I can tell you, and this is not playing sides, I have no sides, because I don't happen to think either party can save this country. I don't think that's the answer at this point. I'm not saying this country is in a point of losing. I'm just looking back to the period. I happen to be a student of history, and I know that we are against teaching history in the United States today. I realize that history is taboo, and we're not supposed to pay much attention because students aren't taught it. But we need to remember the warning. As I've said in the past 2 years, almost every show I've done, and my performances are entertainment, but I've said, we got to remember the warning, that if we don't learn history, we have the price to pay of repeating history, and we are going to repeat history. I mean, I have read over 2,000 pages of Winston Churchill, and we got to remember this brilliant man who, in my opinion, was the greatest statesman of the last century. His people didn't pay attention to him. Read his writings in the 1930s. Oh my God, they're so astute. Oh, and then when the war hit, suddenly everybody came to their senses, and then who did they pick to help save England but Winston Churchill? It's a very difficult time now. I guess I was frightened months ago, very seriously frightened. I thought it was a Jay Leno joke. When 3 different groups, surveys, made a national survey in the United States, and I can remember it being discussed 3 different times, that it was found, I believe it was from young kids up to a certain teenage, that over 1/3 of the kids in the United States had no idea who our first president was. I mean, this sounds like a joke. It sounds like a Jay Leno joke. And yet I found that these were serious surveys. So we don't really have a handle on what's going, because I really think that what's going to save, and bring America to the soundness that we know of the United States is some entrepreneur out of left field among our young people.
Well,
and
Kreskin,
that's my hope.
Yeah, we're running short of time here, Kreskin, but I do want to. Mary Ellen, do you have any questions?
I can talk. And by the way, Scott, you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I got to tell you something exciting. You got to make a footnote of this and remind, maybe call on, because I didn't mean to be so talkative, but everybody's saying mass about this. In about a week and a half, my new book finally is coming out, and I'd like you to remind us to get a copy to you. Then maybe we can spend more time discussing. I'm excited about this book, Scott. It's my 19th, and it's not because of what I've written, but the format and the way it's put together. It is one of the dreams of my life, and I'd love to discuss it with you on the air at some length.
I'll tell you what, we'll make a deal, Kreskin. In 4 years, if you send me one of those...
Do it before that.
No, hold on. If you send me one of those boxes, we'll do it. How's that sound? I want to be on your box list.
But the book is all I want to tell you. I am. It is, and it's not because of what I've written. I kept it secret, and it's been delayed for a long time. Thank goodness with the what we went through here in New Jersey, and then with the election, I didn't want to muddle things, but I think we could spend considerable. I got a lot to talk about in the book, a lot of behind the scenes through the years up until even now.
Well, I'm excited. Mary Ellen, did you have any questions for Kreskin?
Yes, I do. I'd like to ask you if you have any prediction on the solving of the debt. What will happen there?
Solving of the what?
The national debt.
Oh, no, I don't. The only way I can explain to college students the debt. Students look at me and say, and some of them have studied, government and what have you. Every once in a while, I've done over 1,000 university shows. I just came back from the University of Manitoba. And sometimes they'll bring me in a day ahead of time and meet with about 200 students. They'll have a Q&A. Now, I'm not an authority. I know a lot about very, very little, and very little about almost everything. But I try to explain the debt in this way. If we take historically, the day historically that Jesus Christ was born,
Kreskin, you've made us all think. I thank you for stopping by. I know it's been a busy time for you, and we'll talk again.
But Scott, you're one of my favorite people.
But you won't put me on the box list.
We'll talk about the book, though, and we can spend more time. I'd love to talk to you about the book.
Thank you, Kreskin. I appreciate you taking the time.
See you. I'll see you. Unless I'm not going to say goodbye. As I always said, in the spirit of broadcasting, Scott, to be continued.
To be continued. Thank you, Kreskin.
See you, Scott.
The amazing Kreskin, certainly one of a kind, no doubt about that. We're joined, if you didn't realize, by the 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow. Mary Ellen, what do you make of the amazing Kreskin?
Well, that was very interesting, and I remember, you had Jackie on. What's Jackie's last name? Kirsom, who said that it wasn't going to be Romney.
I remember that.
Yes, and it was very interesting what he said there. I just wonder what happened that we got two predictions there that it wasn't going to be Romney.
Well, it was interesting because if you do go back to a year and a half ago, which I did the research and he did under lock and key give it to these people. Where was Paul Ryan a year and a half ago?
Yeah, he was doing the budget.
Yeah.
He was very much in the news.
You're right.
Yeah.
But do you think people had I don't remember, I guess I've forgotten. Did people have eyes on him then? I remember Romney always being the front runner. And then Santorum jumped in. I don't remember hearing a whole lot about Ryan.
Oh, he was criticized all over the United States for his budget plan.
Well, I remember that. But
Yeah.
I don't remember him ever, it being leaked that he was going to get in the fray.
No,
Yeah.
no, it wasn't that I know of either.
I think it's interesting. Well, I have got to let the audience know, if you didn't watch our election preview special with Mary Ellen and Mary Ann Michaels, you need to go do that, first of all, to prove what I'm about to say. I'm going to take Mary Ellen to Las Vegas. I guess we can even stay in Ohio now. We don't even have to go to Las Vegas
Right.
anymore. We can stay
Right.
in Ohio, which you're part of, which we're all thankful for, I think, now that the money's coming in.
Right.
We did election predictions in Ohio and even some nationally. Your first year back in Marion, and I can't find one that you were wrong about.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You don't sound surprised by that. I like it. Well, let's talk about it. I want to start from the bottom. We didn't actually do this prediction, but people know this. Of course, I imagine a race that was very close to your heart, Marion County Treasurer.
Yes.
You
right.
had endorsed Jan Draper, the current treasurer. She was up against Tom Oyster. 56% for Draper, 43% for Oyster. Draper's back.
That's right.
Why did you endorse her?
Well, because she had a lot of experience. She'd been in there. She had worked in the office prior to being treasurer, and Tom Oyster didn't have any experience as county treasurer, and didn't seem to have really a whole lot to talk about as far as what he would be able to do as far as the job. I mean, he criticized her a lot, but he was very critical of her operation, and usually it was things that was within the law. I mean, she was bound by law on most of her procedures, so.
The big thing that I kept hearing, and I think he even made the assertion on this program, was that Draper had let some property taxes go. I tried to contact Jan, never did get exactly a straight answer on that, but I think that was the big critiquing point that I kept hearing.
Well, she did. She came to speak to a group that I was where I was, and she talked about that, how they were people that were behind in their property taxes were making payments, and everything was within the law and what she could do.
That was an interesting one. And one that I think even maybe became more close to your heart than the treasurer race was the Marion City income tax.
Oh, yes. I was very happy about that.
Passed by quite a good margin, 55.75% for, 44.25 against. And that's quite an amazing thing because the county sales tax did not pass by a very slim margin. And this passed rather considerably.
Yes,
and Tri-Rivers failed, which was a tax. So what do you think made this pass, and why your first year back in Marion did you throw your support behind this?
Well, I'll answer the last part first. I felt we had to do something to help the city because it really we needed to have the protection. We didn't have the police protection and the fire protection that's so necessary for a healthy city. And that was the reason I got into the race. I thought about it for a while and thought, well, I should do this because it's important. And so that's the reason I did it. And what was the other part of that?
What was were you gratified that it won? Why do you think it won when so many other things don't?
Oh, there was a lot of people working very hard on that. And, of course, the mayor, Scott Schertzer was very organized, and I think the police and the firemen were very organized, too. They had signs everywhere. Signs are important. And they had a lot of cards sent out through the mail. I think the other situations did too. It didn't seem to have the interest that this had.
Well, I think it was also very interesting because every piece of literature that I saw had that picture of you and Jack Kellogg together.
Mm-hmm.
And if there ever was anything that was bipartisan in Marion, Kellogg a Republican, you a Democrat, Kellogg a very popular mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we all know what you did. I think that was important. I don't remember a bipartisan political effort like that happening in a long time.
Yes, and it was a very good move.
When that day you met with Jack, what was it like? Friendly?
Oh, I like Jack a lot. He's a good person. Yeah, he had his knee operations since that came out. He had both knees operated. He had knee replacements. So, yeah, Jack Kellogg and I are friends. Yeah,
very good guy.
Yeah.
Let's go to the state level. I know you watch this race very closely. I know, I can feel it coming. Sherrod Brown versus the current treasurer of Ohio, not the United States, Josh Mandel, 50 to 45%. Brown did okay. He's back in office.
Right.
Or staying in office.
I'm certainly glad he is, too. He had a really tough race. A lot of money was spent, and I think that was the thing that was so noticeable in this race. But, you look all over the United States, and the people running for the Senate did all right. There was a lot of women ran, too, and we have, I think, 20 women now in the Senate.
I heard something, and I think, if I'm wrong, somebody correct me, but I think the first Hindu woman was elected either to the Senate or the Congress.
I don't know. I didn't know about that.
I heard something about that today. Mm-hmm. I'll have to make sure it was Hindu, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Another interesting thing to the Brown-Mandel race in Marion, 50% for Mandel, 41% for Sherrod Brown. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, it certainly did. It surprised me a lot. In fact, I would like to know why people voted for Josh Mandel. I'm just puzzled by it.
I don't think we're telling secrets here, and you can answer this or not answer this. That's fine by me, but there is definitely something about Mandel. I mean, I'm sure there are people you have disliked during your career, but this seems to be a real, don't have a good feeling about him.
Mm-hmm, no, I don't. First of all, he's an opportunist. He didn't do his job as state treasurer. All he was doing was running for the Senate, and of course the state treasurer's office is suffering all this time. And he hadn't been there only, I guess, 87 days when he first took off on trying to raise money. Didn't attend his board of deposit meetings, which he's supposed to chair. And who else? What else didn't he do? People wouldn't realize that unless they knew the inner workings of the treasurer's office, and that's what I can't understand. Why people would vote for him when the things that he had on television were not always true. It's really wrong to lie in these campaigns. There were a lot of lies out there this past year, and they catch up with you.
I would expect they would.
If they caught up with Romney.
Well, let's move on to that.
Yeah.
President Obama, Mitt Romney, big presidential election. Everybody in the media said it was going to be a close one. Popular vote was pretty close. It was 50 to 48%, but electorally it was a blowout. Ended up being 332 for Obama to 206 for Romney, and Obama carried Florida. And I'm going to give it to you. I didn't hear that anywhere on the news. I didn't hear that in the media anywhere. But you said that 2 days before the election, that you had not given up on Florida, that he was going to win it, and he did.
Yes.
What did you know that we didn't know?
Well, I think I mentioned why I thought he was going to win was, first of all, Bill Clinton had been down there campaigning for several days. And another reason was when Bloomberg endorsed Obama, there's a lot of New York women that are in Florida. They go down in October. So they're down there to vote. And they're going to be influenced if they weren't before. And in Broward County, I mean, it's loaded. Miami County and Broward are almost solid Democrat. And so all of that, I just felt that Obama was going to win, and so there you are.
49.9% to 49.3%. It was a close one, but he did. And I don't think Florida had ever been in his column during this whole election season. I mean, they had put it in leaning Romney at points, and then they'd made it a swing state, but they never put it in Obama's column. I was shocked that he was able to carry that.
Mm-hmm.
It was very interesting. But once again, the vote in Marion, because we are in Marion, we'll pull that, went Romney 52% to 45%.
Yes, right.
Does that reaffirm the idea that I think exists in Marion that we are a Republican community?
I think we are. Although we have a lot of Democratic elected officials, but I think it still is leaning Republican. It has for years.
How did you make it through?
I don't know.
No, I mean, like, I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking, well, it's you and Harding who went to the national level. Harding was a Republican, but in the 80s, 70s, 90s, I thought it would be hard for a woman Democrat to come out of Marion, Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people thought it was, not going to happen. But it was. There was a lot of things that occurred that were helpful. I was running against 6 men. I was the only woman, and I think sometimes I think you do have an advantage being a woman, and sometimes you don't. I mean, I was always last to talk. I would have 3 minutes to sell myself to the public, and that's not very long. All over the state of Ohio, they give you 3 minutes, and you're the last one to speak. I don't know if it was because I was a woman or because my name was Withrow.
I was wondering. It could be the last name. I don't know.
Well, I was never sure why they did that, but anyway, I covered a lot of territory that other people didn't. I know that. So
in your runs, and maybe you don't know, I'd like to check on this sometime. In your runs for state treasurer, did you always carry Marion?
Oh yes.
You did.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Good grief.
Well, but sometimes people get fickle when they start doing things.
Well, that's true, but I'd really wonder about myself if I didn't carry Marion. Yeah, but I had to be elected here, as in my first job, or I couldn't have gone on. But and they were very happy with the job I did here.
I think Romney has to wonder about Michigan, Massachusetts, Ryan, and Wisconsin. It does happen, though. It does happen. The people who are elected don't always carry the home state, but that's good to hear. Was it always by a good margin?
Oh yes, the last time it was. Well, I'll tell you, I think I might still have the record vote here.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
I ought to check and see, because I I had it for quite a while. So I don't know if I still do or not.
Do you think the Mary Ellen Withrow of the 1980s running in 2012 could carry Marion being so Republican?
Oh, I think I could. Yeah.
That's positive thinking. I like it.
Well, yeah, I think I could.
Yeah. It does happen. I mean, Democrats do win here, but it's shocking to me sometimes how we can be so wrong on the presidential race, the state senate race in this county. It's interesting to me.
It's baffling.
It's a study in politics.
Yeah, it really is. I don't have the answer for that one.
Well, I tell you what, I want to talk about some issues because it was not only historic for presidential reasons, Senate reasons. By the way, I do want to give the numbers if you want to know. Obama, $60,892,777. Romney, $57,956,657. And that's where we stand now. I'm sure that'll change a little bit, but Obama does win the popular vote. Historic night for other reasons. 3 states, Tuesday night, by vote on the ballot, approved of same-sex marriage. Washington, Maine, Maryland had never been approved when it was on the ballot. I think it was 38-state losing streak they had with that. What happened, Mary Ellen? Are the times changing?
Yes, times are changing. I think everything's loosening up on that. People feel differently about it, I think, now.
It's interesting to me because when it was on the ballot here in Ohio, it lost so badly.
Well, it was. You know what was interesting? It was put on the ballot to cause people to lose. That's the reason that was put on the ballot. It was put on by the Republican Party, and it caused who was running that year? I can't remember.
Kerry and Bush.
Probably, but yeah.
I think it was.
Well, was in 2004.
Yes, that would have been 2004.
Yeah.
Nationally.
Yeah, it seemed like it was longer ago than that. But anyway, that they put it on there for a reason, and it it didn't pass then. But I'm wondering if it was put on for a reason this time, and they fooled them.
It backfired.
Yeah.
Backfired in those 3 states. Marijuana, recreational use approved in Colorado and Washington. Are you for that or against that?
I don't know.
That's a tough one.
I don't have any feeling about that at all.
What do you make of it passing? Do you think it'll cause a problem? I know it's going to be heavily taxed in Colorado.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a very high rate.
I just don't have any feelings about that at all.
Washington now has same-sex marriage and recreational marijuana, so it's a lot of things changing in Washington right now. Washington State. One of the people we talked about a lot of times on the show walked away in defeat here in Ohio on Tuesday night, Joe the Plumber.
Oh, what was the numbers on that? Do you have that?
I don't have the exact numbers. Something happened up there because of the redistricting, but it was in the 60s to I think the high 30s. I mean, it was not close at all.
No, I knew Marcy would really run away with that.
Where does he go now?
Oh, I don't know. He probably is finished with politics, I would think.
Do you think the Republican Party ever embraced him?
No.
Do you think they should have?
No.
The point-blank answers on those. What's going to happen now, Mary Ellen? December 31st, the Bush tax cuts expire. They've been attached to the middle-class tax situation. It's been held hostage in that way. That expires on December 31st. Obama's going to be here for 4 more years no matter what people say or like or do. What's going to happen?
Well, they're going to have to take care of the fiscal situation. That has to be solved.
What does the second half of the Obama presidency look like?
Well, I think he's going to probably really be able to finish out what he started. That's the whole thing that he talked about. He wanted to finish. The economy was slow getting going, and I think it's continuing to do well, but it needed more time, and I suppose he has other things that he'd like to accomplish too.
How much better shape will the United States be in 4 years? Or will it be, I'm sure you wouldn't say worse, but where will we be in 4 years?
Well, it depends a lot on the Republican Congress. I think if they decide to cooperate and work together, I think we'll have a very successful time. If they operate the way they have been, but I think maybe they've learned their lesson through this election. You can't try to suppress people from voting. You can't lie to people, and that's what went on in this election, and it caught up with them.
What happens to the Republican Party now?
Well, they need to work on it a little bit. I think it needs a lot of help. They need to learn how to work well with others would be what I'd put on their grade card.
But play nice in the sandbox
right.
at this point,
Yeah.
and maybe we'll get something done. Want to wrap up this program by somebody, of course, he's always in the news. We talked about him on the pre-election show. Donald Trump, here he went again. When everything went crazy on Tuesday night, he goes to Twitter. Twitter's his favorite thing, I'm convinced. It's time for a revolution. The world's laughing at us. We have to do something now. This is no longer a democracy. And today he goes on when questioned about that and says, I don't regret saying any of it.
Oh, he likes to be in the news, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, he goes a little time and you don't hear from him, and then he has to say something else to get everything going again. I hope he's finished with this asking for the president's grades and all of that.
Well, you know, in the final result, Mary Ellen, I was thinking back at the last 4 years of President Barack Obama. First African-American president. Republicans came out early on and said he's going to be a one-term president.
Yeah.
Called him the food stamp president.
Mm-hmm.
Tried to get our credit rating downgraded on him. This birth certificate nonsense that went on forever. Gray cards, passports, Donald Trump. I mean, he had the kitchen sink thrown at him in 4 years. The economy's not great, but it wasn't great when he came in. 7% unemployment. First president since Roosevelt to win re-election with an unemployment rate like that. What does it say about Barack Obama?
Well, he's a fighter.
Yeah.
He ran a hard campaign. I'll tell you, that organization was something else. I never saw such organization. The way they had every city. Richwood had a headquarters, and Wyandotte County hadn't had one since 1972.
I thought that the Clinton machine was the gold standard, but when Barack beat Hillary, in the two presidential elections, the way he campaigns, the way he uses the internet, the way he brings in young people, as great as Bill Clinton was, and I think most people will agree that, even Republicans now I think would say that, Obama, I think, did set the standard when it came to running for office. Would you say that? I know you're fond of Bill Clinton.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
I am. But Obama's organization was really good, and I think Bill Clinton's was too at the time. But this was just this was an enormous operation, and they didn't quit. They kept on from 4 years ago when they ran that first campaign. They didn't stop.
Since you were so good at predicting things the other night, 4 years from now, people say Biden's too old to run. People say he couldn't win. Hillary's taking 4 years off now. Some people say she'll jump back in. What's happening in 4 years? Who's going to be the candidate? I know we're just days away, but who do you see on the horizon? Will Biden run for it? Will he try?
I don't know. I think that once Hillary maybe rests a while, she might run.
Would you how heavily would you support that? Would you encourage
Oh,
that?
I would support her, yes. I sure would.
She'll be in her 70s at that point. Is that a hindrance?
No, she's in her early 60s, isn't
Is it early
she?
60s?
Yeah, she isn't
Okay,
going to
I might be
be.
wrong.
Yeah, no, she wouldn't be that old. I don't know exactly what she is, but she might be 62. I don't know.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay. You probably know better.
Well,
somebody said she'd be in her 70s
they did.
in 4 years.
Well, I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
but
We'll have to,
anyway.
too bad we don't have a fact checker here. We don't
Yeah,
have.
right.
How old will Hillary Clinton be in 4 years? But she'll be a senior citizen. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, she's got a lot of options, and she might go into some organization. She might work with Bill on his big operation. He's got a huge operation going on.
Do you think she'll run?
I think she might. Every time I try to predict what she's going to do, I predict wrong. So I haven't been good on predicting Hillary's future.
You're back in Marion. I imagine you'll be here for the rest of your life, which I think will be a long time. No, I think that's a good... Your daughter's in here with us as we're taping. You got a long time left. But the question is, you got your feet wet back in Marion politics. You supported things that won. You have a 100% batting average. What's next for you?
Oh, I'm having a good time just doing what I'm doing.
And one day you will run for something.
Oh, I don't think so. I
You're
don't
still
think
taking
so.
the Sherman on me.
You're trying to get me to say I'll run for something, but I see nothing in the horizon.
But you wouldn't turn it down.
I don't know. I'm not saying that, but I don't think that's going to happen, Scott.
If I ever run for office, will you endorse me? Because apparently that helps.
Well, what are you going to run for?
I don't know what I would be good at. Maybe dog warden or something.
I don't think the dog warden has to run.
Really?
No.
Maybe mayor. How about mayor?
Well, that's a thought.
Would you endorse an independent if I ran as an independent?
It'd depend on who the Democrat was, and
We're going to hash this out as we go off the air. Mary Ellen Withrow, it's always a pleasure, and congratulations. You made a lot of predictions that people on CNN and Fox News and MSNBC weren't making. Always a
Okay,
pleasure, and great
right.
to have you back.